A sharp slap reverberated through the opulent halls of the Russo estate in Napa Valley, tearing Isabella Russo's heart apart. 7 months pregnant, she crumpled to the marble floor, her eyes alight with pain yet blazing with unwavering resolve as she faced the contemptuous smile of Giselle, her husband's mistress. The family's darkest secret, hidden deep within the wine cellar, stood on the brink of toppling Vincent's entire empire. Would Isabella find the strength to rise from these ashes? If you have ever felt the sting of betrayal, your heart shattered yet your spirit still longing to fight, press play now. This is your story, one of unbreakable courage and of truth that cannot be buried. Alright, before you settle in, take a sec to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're genuinely vibing with what I'm putting out here. And drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a thrill to see who's joining us from all corners of the globe. Isabella felt her breath quicken as she stepped into the great hall of the Russo estate. The crystal chandeliers shimmered softly against the dark stone walls, yet within her, there was not a trace of peace. 7 months pregnant with twins, she ought to have been wrapped in the sweetest joy of her life. Instead, she found herself caught in a storm of suspicion and fear. The gala launching the new vintage had begun with the most classic wines of the Russo name, vintages that had carried the family's reputation across the globe. Isabella had always taken pride in sharing her research into the Russo lineage, unearthing secrets etched in ancient manuscripts and preserved in time-worn archives. All week she'd spent in the castle library, pinning her hopes on unveiling a landmark discovery, the true ancestry of the Russos, a legacy to secure for her unborn children. But when her eyes flicked toward the doorway, the sight that met her heart felt like a blade. Her husband, Vincent Russo, stood in conversation with Giselle Moreau, the celebrated fashion journalist. Vincent exuded confidence, his gaze as cold and precise as a kingpin's. Giselle, in a figure-hugging gown that showcased every curve, laughed softly and tilted her head as she listened. Their shared smiles and lingering glances struck Isabella like a dagger to the chest. She forced a polite smile to greet arriving guests, but it dissolved into emptiness. Every congratulatory word, every compliment on the new collection of vintages, each syllable reverberated in her ears as meaningless chatter. She closed her eyes for a moment, reminding herself to stay calm even as her heart pounded erratically. Beside her, a glass of deep ruby wine was placed with the invitation. "Please try this. It's an exclusive limited edition." Isabella inhaled sharply, raised the glass to her lips, yet the bitter acidity spread across her tongue, mirroring the doubt flooding her mind. Amid the revelry, Isabella's phone buzzed, the screen illuminated with a message from an unknown sender. "He is not the heir." Look in the wine cellar. Her throat went dry. She glanced around, uncertain whom to trust or what to do. All this time, she had placed her absolute faith in Vincent, the man who had opened doors to cinema, fashion, and prestige. She believed their marriage was the sweetest dream, a historian protected and cherished by her husband, together preserving a grand legacy. Now, a single searing question clawed at her soul. Is he truly who I thought he was? Amid the laughter and toasts, Isabella slipped away toward the door, leading down to the wine cellar. Each wooden step creaked beneath her weight, a warning urging her to turn back. Yet her curiosity, her historian's instinct, propelled her onward. Under the flicker of a lone lantern, rows of dusty barrels exuded the warm scent of aged spirits. She tiptoed past, studying each label and intricate emblem. With every breath, fear tightened its grip, anxiety coursing through her veins. Suddenly, behind the oldest barrel, Isabella discovered a hidden iron drawer. Her hands trembled as she pried it open. Inside lay a yellow document, ink blurred but legible enough to read the declaration. Official heirship certificate. The rightful heir is Alessio Salvatore, the sole adopted son of Mrs. Virgilio Russo. Her heart skipped a beat. Alessio Salvatore. Who was he? Isabella had never encountered that name in any family records she had pored over. One half of her mind urged her to discard the paper, to deny its truth. The other half pulled taut, ready to snap. Why had Vincent never mentioned him? What other secrets had he hidden? She let out a silent cry. No sound emerged. She felt fear, fury, and above all, a profound loneliness. The opulent Russo estate, once a symbol of grandeur, now felt like a gilded cage imprisoning her heart. Standing at this crossroads, Isabella realized she faced a choice. Continue performing the role of the dutiful wife to a man she barely knew, or unmask the deceit and claim the truth for herself, and for the children stirring within her. In the hush of the cellar's darkness, Isabella drew a steadying breath. She knew a decision lay before her. For her unborn twins, for the legacy at stake, and above all, for herself. Isabella tightened her grip on the fabric of her gown, her eyes alight with determination as she pulled Vincent into a secluded corner of the room, where the music and celebratory chatter seemed to vanish into a hush of tension. "Who is she, Vincent?" she asked, her voice trembling, yet each word crackled with challenge. Beneath her elegant attire and composed facade, she refused to grant herself another moment of doubt. Everything must be made clear. Right here, right now. Vincent halted mid-stride, his gaze flicking over the nearby guests, those who busied themselves preserving the flawless image of the wine world's most powerful couple. He let out a thin, mirthless smile, one that revealed his contempt. "Don't embarrass me, Isabella." His tone was not merely a warning. It was a weapon sheathed in honeyed words. In that instant, she realized her love had never been strong enough to restrain his ruthless instincts. Before 100 watchful eyes, Vincent raised his hand. The slap landed like a declaration of his absolute authority, sharp as a blade slicing the air. Isabella reeled, collapsing onto the cold marble floor. Instinctively, she cradled her swollen belly, the home of 2 tiny lives growing day by day. The pain wasn't only from the strike. Her heart, long faithful to him, shattered into fragments. Yet, amid the shock, she felt a gentle pulse, a fragile beacon of warmth from her unborn children, guiding her through the dark. Giselle, for once stripped of journalistic poise, stepped forward in her sensuous black silk gown. Her lips curved into a disdainful smirk as she leaned in, her whisper cutting through the silence. "You don't belong here." The words pierced Isabella's pride, even as the guests murmured behind them, their eyes flickering between curiosity and pity. They saw only a dramatic spectacle. They were blind to the power plays of the privileged. But within Isabella, a fierce flame ignited. She was no longer the fragile woman who bowed for peace. Every sting of pain across her cheek, every mocking glance had fanned her resolve. For her children, she needed to be stronger than ever, and she, a historian with an unwavering spirit, would not lose herself to deceit or violence. With deliberate grace, Isabella sat up, straightening her back as she locked eyes with Vincent. He opened his mouth in a contemptuous sneer, but froze when he met her blazing gaze. She swept a strand of hair from her face, a silent rebuttal to his cruel blow. Every movement spoke her declaration. "I will not be silent. I deserve truth and genuine love." The chandeliers continued to sparkle around her, but now they served merely as a dim backdrop to her verbal stand. Surrounded by heavy tension, Isabella turned toward the unseen audience, as if daring them all. "Those of you who have tasted betrayal, those who have risen from heartbreak, tell me, will you fight or fall? Share your thoughts below, for only by raising our voices can we find the strength to author our own stories." Night had fallen. As the Russo estate sank into silence, everything seemed frozen in an atmosphere heavy with secrets and suspicion. Despite the sharp pain with every step, Isabella was determined to slip down into the ancient wine cellar, where the damp wood of the barrels and the scent of ferment mingled into a sorrowful breath. She lifted a candle from the stone shelf, struck a match gently, then held the trembling flame forward, as if searching for traces of truth in the darkness. The cramped corridor of the cellar allowed Isabella only a few fleeting moments to locate her target. On an old wine rack, among countless bottles of dark-hued vintages, she discovered a wooden chest engraved with intricate patterns, delicate yet steadfast, like a whisper from her ancestors. The bronze lock was corroded, small fissures proving it had endured for centuries. Crouching down, her hand trembling, she eased the latch until it groaned open, revealing inside a bundle of time-worn, handwritten documents. Isabella drew out each page, the ink faded yet still legible enough to reveal the startling confession from 1880. She read with rapt attention, the pledges and discussions among Rousseau generations, disclosing a shocking secret. Vincent Rousseau is not a direct descendant of the Rousseau lineage. The true heir belongs to the Moreau family and has been erased from the family records. On the final page, the name Giselle Moreau appeared beside a hurried note. The key to the truth. She knows, but must choose. Isabella felt her heart skip a beat. All her long-held doubts compressed into a mountain of stunned disbelief. Holding the documents to her chest, she silently seated herself on the rough stone step, her mind spinning. Why had Vincent never mentioned this? Why had the family's sweat and legacy been entrusted to someone not of the Rousseau name? And more importantly, why had the Moreau bloodline, those with the genuine connection, been expunged and cast into the margins of history? Isabella closed her eyes, straining to suppress the pain from her every subtle movement. Her unborn child seemed to understand her tension, its warm heartbeat urging her not to retreat. She knew she held in her hands the chance to uncover the hidden truth. Yet fear crept in. If this secret were revealed, the estate's reputation would collapse, and all that she and Vincent had built would crumble. But she could no longer ignore it. Suddenly, from the far end of the wine cellar, a shadow flickered in the candlelight. Isabella jumped, her arm shaking and scattering the papers. She held her breath, listening to her own heart pounding in her ears. Was that Vincent? Or was it Giselle herself, the subject of so many whispered speculations? She recalled Giselle's gaze at the gala, reflecting a depth of understanding, as though she were no mere guest. Her vision spun. Isabella sprang to her feet, flicking the candle so the flame danced wildly. She raised the document bundle, resolved. She had to verify Vincent's true identity, had to answer the question. Who is Giselle Moreau, really? Yet before her lay imminent danger, perhaps Vincent's wrathful glare, or the dirty schemes the Rousseau family had long suppressed. Amid the cellar's darkness, Isabella inhaled deeply, beads of sweat forming on her brow. Here she stood, holding the key to the truth, teetering on the brink of peril. She could turn back, slip away to her room, and continue living in a gilded prison of lies. But no, she was Isabella, the woman who never stayed silent in the face of injustice. She allowed herself a small, determined smile. Come what may, she would lift the veil of secrecy for herself and for the two little lives waiting to be born. The morning sun had barely hesitated through the window pane when Isabella quietly slipped from her room, her heart still in turmoil after the mysterious night in the wine cellar. She sought out Marco, the gardener who had tended the Rousseau estate for over 3 decades, the only soul who truly understood every stone and every hidden secret of this place. Time had bent his back, yet his eyes still gleamed with the power to see through any deceit. When Isabella recounted her discoveries, Marco merely nodded, then sighed before confiding. Giselle Moreau did not come here for the gala. I've seen her rummaging through Vincent's study night after night. She wasn't looking for wine. She was searching for something that holds the true origins of the Rousseau legacy. Marco's words struck Isabella like a bucket of ice water. Giselle, the alluring woman with the enigmatic smile, was in fact a crucial link in this chain of secrets. Isabella felt a rush of heat to her cheeks, anger and curiosity drawn tight like a bowstring. She asked Marco, "Do you know what she was after?" He shook his head. "Not yet. But if she knew everything, she'd stay silent, not out of fear, but to protect someone hidden behind it all." Armed with this new clue, Isabella returned to the castle and contacted Harper, the local attorney who once worked for her father. Over the phone, Harper's tone was icily professional. "I'm ready to investigate, but we must be cautious. Vincent Russo spares no one who meddles in his family affairs. He will stop at nothing to silence those in his way." Harper's warning rang in Isabella's ears like an alarm bell. She hung up, her heart pounding. She wondered, if she continued, would the cost be too high? In that moment, a gentle kick from within her belly reminded her tenderly that 2 lives depended entirely on her choice. She placed a hand over her stomach, feeling the warm pulse of those tiny hearts. Then her phone buzzed again, an unknown number lighting up with a message. "Stop digging into the past, or your children will pay the price." The shadow of threat swept across the screen, making Isabella shiver. It seemed the unseen forces in the darkness had long laid traps for her. But tears of despair would no longer flow. Instead, her heart brimmed with determination. She thought of her father, who had bequeathed her faith in justice, of Marco, who had protected the estate with unwavering loyalty, and of Harper, who stood by her despite the danger. She realized, if she backed down, not only would she suffer, but the future of her innocent children would be buried beneath layers of lies. The truth about the Russo lineage must be revealed, so that justice becomes not a distant dream, but the birthright of those whose blood truly carries this legacy. Isabella drew a deep breath, banishing her fear. A second gentle kick from within seemed to bolster her resolve, igniting an unbreakable flame. She lifted her phone and typed back to Harper, "Act now, I will not stop." Then, to Marco, she whispered, "Stay by my side, no matter what." Isabella's steps grew firmer, despite the lingering pain. She knew this journey was not for the faint of heart, but the love of a mother and the spirit of a historian would transform her anguish into strength to unveil the hidden truth. Beyond the darkness, the light of justice awaited, and today, she chose to step forward. Dear audience, grab a glass of water, take a moment to relax, and keep listening to the story. The twists are still to come. And please drop a comment below, letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a joy to see who's joining us from around the world. Drop a 1 in the comments if you find this story gripping, so we can keep bringing you more captivating tales. The library's pale golden light barely illuminated the pages of the documents when Isabella suddenly felt her heart seize. She collapsed across the gleaming table, warm blood soaking through the hem of her white dress. There was no time for panic. The servant sprinted for help, and within minutes Isabella was being wheeled into the emergency room amid the urgent ringing of the nurse's station bell. Now, lying in a hospital bed, she heard the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Yet within her, she felt more keenly than ever the frantic pulse of 2 tiny lives fighting to survive. The doctor appeared at her bedside, his expression grave. "You have placenta previa. The twins are in danger. We must intervene immediately to protect both mother and children." The word danger felt like an ice-cold warning, making every cell tremble and every hope tremor. Through the surging pain, Isabella closed her eyes and pictured her children's tiny hands gripping life itself. A jolt of electricity ran through her heart, but instead of surrendering, she felt a new strength rising. "My babies. I will not let anything steal your chance to live," she whispered, her voice steely. The doctor made quick notes, but his gaze flickered into her deep, unyielding resolve, readier than any prescription could instill. A few hours later, in the hushed waiting room, Harper, the family's longtime attorney, entered, his eyes transformed beyond recognition. He placed a thick dossier on the table, his voice low and taut. Giselle Moreau is not merely Vincent's mistress. She is the final heir of the Moreau line, and everything she knows about the Russo origins has been manipulated by Vincent to conceal the truth. Isabella stared down at the files. Each line of text felt like a blade slicing through her core. The entire family narrative shattered in an instant. Giselle was no idle interloper, but the key to justice and rightful inheritance. The helplessness of her physical pain swiftly turned to a rising tide of rage. Despite the IV lines, she sat up, her eyes blazing. So all this time I was nothing more than bait for him to protect his reputation and power, she said, her voice hoarse yet laden with the weight of betrayal. Harper nodded sympathetically. You must be cautious. Vincent will not allow anyone to access the truth. But Isabella was unmoved by caution. She recalled the thrill of first touching that 1880 document. The ink-dark declaration still echoed in her mind. The true heir is not a Russo, but a Moreau. Now, the fragile lives within her provided an undeniable reason to continue this fight. Beads of sweat trickled down her brow, but she did not flinch. Within her pain, she discovered courage. She leaned forward, resting a hand over her abdomen, and whispered, I will protect you at any cost. The vow resonated softly in the sterile room, perfectly in sync with the steady beats of her baby's hearts on the monitor. Harper stood silently beside her, recognizing that this was not merely a mother's pledge, but the resolve of a historian, a wife, and above all, a woman unwilling to live under the tyranny of lies. Though every next step promised untold danger, Isabella chose to confront Giselle, the woman bearing the blood of Moreau royalty, an unwitting ally in her quest for truth. And in that fleeting moment, she asked herself, if I must sacrifice everything, what is the most precious thing I will fight for? A faint smile curved her lips, affirming that, no matter the trials ahead, she would never relent. Stepping into the small Napa wine bar, Isabella chose a shadowed corner where the warm amber light barely revealed her face without drawing attention. In her hand was the ancient dossier, the sole proof of the deceit that had spanned generations. When Giselle appeared, her elegant black silk dress could not mask the exhaustion and unease etched across her features. Without hesitation, Isabella placed the dossier on the table and flung open the yellowed pages to the handwritten line in faded ink. Legal heir, House of Moreau, Giselle Moreau. Vincent has deceived us both, Isabella said, her tone soft yet ice-cold. Her gaze remained fixed on every flicker of emotion across the woman before her. He fabricated our bloodlines, erased your name from the family record, all to seize the Russo throne for an outsider. Giselle's brow furrowed as she laughed ruefully, but her expression swiftly shifted when her eyes fell upon those golden lines. She trembled as she leafed through each page, feeling every stroke of ink like an irrevocable verdict. Giselle's heart thundered, rage rose in her throat. He used me as a pawn to soften public opinion and blind the press. In that instant, the distance between them vanished. Isabella saw in Giselle's eyes not only betrayal, but the shared pain of two women exploited for another's power play. She refused pity. Instead, she reached out and drew Giselle closer, offering steadfast solidarity. We will reclaim the truth together. Giselle gave a quiet nod, her voice dropping to a solemn whisper. I have lived long enough in the shadow of the Russo legacy. Now it is time for light to prevail. Two women, once sworn enemies, became unlikely allies, united by a single goal: to expose Vincent's crimes and shatter his gilded facade. Isabella outlined the plans for the year's grandest wine auction in the heart of Napa Valley, an event graced by the industry's most illustrious names and streamed by millions. There, at that moment, she said with solemn resolve, we will live stream the entire process, presenting our evidence before the auctioneer's hammer falls. Once everyone knows the truth, his reputation will crumble. Giselle smiled, determination sparking in her eyes. I will stand behind the camera, mobilizing reporters and lawyers. And you, Isabella, will join me on stage when the auction begins. No lengthy speech needed. Simply hold this dossier up to the lens. They swiftly divided their duties. Isabella would liaise with legal experts to validate the evidence. Giselle would leverage her press contacts to orchestrate an urgent briefing just before the gavel struck. Every detail was meticulously plotted, from camera placements to the precise moment to break from the stage's backdrop, to a short yet shattering script. Before they could finalize their scheme, Isabella's phone rang. Marco, the aging gardener fiercely loyal to the estate, called in a panic. Miss, Vincent knows you have the dossier. He's searching the entire castle. Marco's voice quivered. Isabella's heart turned to stone. She glanced at Giselle, hands clenching into fists. Time was slipping away. Only one morning remained to prepare before they stepped onto that auction floor. Every move had to be swift, accurate, and flawless. Giselle inhaled deeply, her lips parting. We can use the live stream to force him to unmask himself, or at the very least, make him think twice about obstructing us. Isabella nodded, her eyes alight with fierce resolve. Let him witness us seizing control of our own story. The two women rose, ready to face the challenge. As Vincent's final stratagems began to unravel, he had yet to realize he had handed them the most powerful weapon of all, the truth. And when justice shone across a global screen, nothing could stand in their way on the path to reclaiming their honor and protecting their future. The wine auction Isabella and Giselle had long awaited was finally underway. The stage lights zeroed in on the podium at the center of the hall, where Vincent Russo, the self-styled wine kingpin, confidently strode before the live broadcast cameras. He lifted the precious bottle aloft, his voice brimming with pride. This is the unique 1945 Cabernet, valued at $2 million, a symbol of Russo's power and heritage. The thunder of applause rose, as if the entire world stood ready to open their wallets for this celebrated name. Yet just as the audience basked in the solemn grandeur, Isabella, her pregnant belly impossible to conceal, stepped deliberately behind another towering figure, Giselle Moreau. The two paused before the podium, eyes unwavering, not a flicker of hesitation between them. The colossal screen above switched to live stream mode. The words "Breaking News" blazed across it, drawing millions of eyes worldwide. Silence stretched for a heartbeat. Then Isabella drew in a deep breath. Her voice, clear yet resolute, carried through the microphone. Tonight, right here, we, two women erased from our family's story, will reveal the truth. The crowd turned, their expressions a blend of shock and anticipation. Vincent's eyes widened, his voice stammering. Isabella, what are you doing? But she offered no answer. Instead, she held the ancient dossier aloft, her gaze like steel. These handwritten documents from 1880 confirm my ancestors' decree. The rightful heirs are the Moreau line, struck from the family register. You have deceived the entire house, embezzled millions from the estate fund, and hidden your plot to seize this castle by crafting your own kingpin image. The side screens alternated pages in crisp detail, ink blurred but irrefutable. The background music cut off entirely, leaving only the sound of startled breaths as the auction seemed to shatter. Isabella pressed on, her tone as unwavering as iron. As the mother of two lives soon to be born, I cannot remain silent while the truth lies buried. I fight for my children's rights, for the legacy that belongs to its rightful heirs. Giselle came forward, her eyes blazing with purpose. I, Giselle Moreau, the last descendant of the Moreau line, was once manipulated by Vincent like a pawn. But today, I stand to reclaim my inheritance, to restore justice for my ancestors and for myself. Murmurs swelled into an uproar. Rumors spread like wildfire. Vincent's chest heaved, panic etched on his once commanding face. He tried to flee, but his loyal security team boxed him in, cornering him between Isabella and Giselle, a living testament to his downfall. Suddenly, the stage lights intensified, and reporters surged forward, cameras trained on Vincent's stunned expression. The lower screen blared, "Live, Russo Scandal," as view counts skyrocketed. On the stock exchange floor, Russo shares plunged, investor panic driving prices into a freefall, a stark emblem of an empire built on lies collapsing. When the final act closed, Isabella and Giselle stood side by side, like twin shields of steel. No further words were needed. The audience's approving gaze and thunderous applause spoke volumes. Justice, though delayed, had arrived at last. Those whose voices had been silenced now had their moment, and in that instant, honor was no longer out of reach. Vincent, now, was but a lone shadow on the stage he himself had constructed. Isabella gently placed a hand on her belly, a tired yet triumphant smile gracing her lips. Justice has prevailed, at least for today. As the stage lights dimmed, the announcer's voice echoed behind them. This revelation promises to be a historic turning point for the wine industry. True justice has triumphed. In the hearts of these two women, faith in a brighter tomorrow burned unshakable. Vincent Russo is now but a name in an investigation file, the remnant of a fraudulent wine empire that has crumbled. Prosecutors have gathered enough evidence of embezzlement from the Preservation Fund, forged genealogical records, and market manipulation. Public outrage has erupted, respected analysts decrying in unison. He turned a century-old legacy into a personal farce. And while the world awaits the final verdict, Isabella and Giselle hold the true key to restoring the Russo family's honor. On the day Vincent was summoned, the Russo estate was sealed off. Wine distributors pulled their contracts, and the name Russo was branded untrustworthy by collectors everywhere. Yet in that very moment, Isabella and Giselle passed through the grand gates not as victims, but as the estate's new owners. They had repurchased the castle at market value, allocating their own funds, including the lawsuit settlement, to transform the place that once hid dark secrets into a center for heritage preservation. The Russo estate no longer symbolized power and deceit. It had become a sanctuary for silenced stories. They established the Sanctuary Fund, dedicated to supporting women wounded in marriage, betrayed by those they trusted most. Each restored chamber would not merely display artifacts, but serve as a healing space, hosting conversations and life-sharing sessions regularly. Though haunted by past wounds, they sought to forge hope for the future. In the library, Giselle held the newly rewritten family chronicle, smiling as she saw her name, now officially recognized as the legal heir, etched across the title page. She heard a whisper from the corner. "Without you, this truth would have remained buried." And she smiled, knowing that she had reclaimed not only her own rights, but justice for her ancestors as well. But Isabella's greatest triumph was not the estate's revival. It was the moment she held her two robust little angels, her twins, safely in her arms. At dawn, as the Napa Valley sunrise painted the vineyards pink, she led her children among the lush rows. Tenderly, she cradled one infant against her chest, as the other gently curled around her finger. The morning breeze carried the faint scent of fermenting grapes, but in her heart lingered not the aroma of wine, rather the promise of a new beginning. She lifted her gaze to the dewy clusters above, then turned toward the livestream camera capturing the inauguration of their Heritage and Support Center. She smiled, her voice warm over the microphone. "True legacy isn't measured in priceless vintages, but in honesty and resilience." Her words resonated not only within the castle walls, but across screens around the globe. Thousands of comments appeared. "Thank you, Isabella, for reviving our hope. We too have fallen, but now we believe we can rise again." Each message bolstered those who had suffered, reminding them they were not alone. Isabella gently set her little angels down on the soft grass, brushing a strand of silky hair from each. Pride swelled in her heart. From the ashes of betrayal and lies, she and Giselle had rebuilt a grander dream. One not only for themselves, but for everyone who had lost faith. They had transformed a castle of hidden truths into a beacon nurturing honesty and empowering women to reclaim their stories. And now, their story stands not only as a testament to the power of perseverance, but as a call to action. What will you do to rise again from your own pain? Do you have the courage to lift the veil of deception and embrace the truth? Like, share, and leave your comment, so every voice can spread hope and strengthen hearts kindling their own dreams.